Hello everyone, welcome back, and today in this video I wanted to talk more about Barcelona's first game after their 2-1 win against Valencia. I thought it was a very impressive performance. The result, obviously, with all those players missing, it was great, and for Hansi Flick's first game in charge, I was really impressed with what we saw, to be completely honest. So I wanted to talk more about that with Hansi Flick and my thoughts on some of the players' performance as well, and also talk about some player news because, Balde, there was some injury worries there. It seems like he's going to be okay. Also, Fermin Lopez, Dani Olmo, when are they going to be back in the squad? Is Gundogan staying at Barcelona? So, yeah, I just wanted to talk about all of that today. If you saw my last video, I talked about how impressed I was with the way that Hansi Flick, he got the result, because that's the most important thing, especially at the beginning of the season when the momentum, the rhythm isn't exactly there from all the players coming back from holidays, coming back from, the Euros and the Olympics. So, of course, all that cohesion with the squad, it's not going to be there. You don't expect it to be a 100% perfect performance. And it wasn't. I think the first half was a bit concerning, like a lot of Barca fans have said, because it seemed at one point it was maybe going to be the same old, where we saw Barca, they just weren't very good going forward, and the midfield, it looked a little bit out of sorts at times, and then they just got counter-attacked very easily, and the defense was letting up good opportunities. In Valencia, if their squad maybe had a little bit more quality in the attacking third, they would have been able to capitalize. Yeah, some of that was concerning, but like I said, Hansi Flick, with all the players that he had missing, I was really impressed with the way, not only that he lined the team up because he played with four attackers, I think he went for it. That was nice to see, but also that he trusted the academy. And I was very impressed with Hansi Flick. I think this preseason, he's done very well. But that first game, with all those players missing, like I said, it was just such an impressive display from himself and from the team. And his substitutions, I thought they were perfect. His in-game management was great. So like I said, all around, I'm just so impressed with Hansi Flick and the Barcelona squad for getting 3 points. The first player that I wanted to highlight in this video is Alejandra Bal, because I think this season, under Hansi Flick, he has the potential to be one of the most important players in the squad. And that game against Valencia, I think it proved exactly that, because especially with Barcelona not being able to sign a direct left winger, Nico Williams likely to stay at Athletic Bilbao, and I don't think they have the finances really to sign any other player in that position other than possibly Kingsley Coman on loan. That left wing spot, I think Balde is going to have to do a lot of work on that side. And he has to remain healthy. Of course, it's going to be very important for him to stay healthy, and you don't want to put him in too many games. So that's why in the 60th minute, when he came off with it looked like an injury, and it seemed like it was his hamstring, which is what kept him out for about 5 months. That was very concerning. But he confirmed himself on Instagram that it was just a knock. He's already back in training. So that's very reassuring. And I know a lot of people talk about Alphonso Davies because Hansi Flick, he turned Alphonso Davies into the best player, the best left back in the world. And that was great to see. He was so good. Obviously not for Barcelona. It wasn't great to see because he did so well against Barcelona in the Champions League. But Alphonso Davies and Alejandra Balde, I can understand that because they have a ton of pace. They're great going forward. And Alejandra Balde, in that game against Valencia, that ball that he put in for the first goal was great. And I know there were some people talking about Balde going forward. He just doesn't have that final end product. But he's still 21 years old. I think people forget how young he is, how much time he has to grow into that role. I think he's just so good already. And defensively, he's great. I think he really doesn't put a foot wrong. Maybe sometimes he loses a little bit of concentration here and there, like the goal. I think that was more Inigo Martinez's fault, in my opinion. But some people maybe could blame Balde for not guarding the back post well enough. But I think defensively, he's already great. Going forward, if he's able to find that last ball, the final pass, and a great cross in, I think he can become such an elite player in that position. I already think he is one of the best in the world in that position. Maybe that could be me being biased, but I think that first season under Xavi, he was so good. And so I'm really excited to see Balde back and healthy because I think he's going to be such an important player under Hansi Flick. And I think that game against Valencia, it just proved how much we missed him because he provides a completely different element at that left back position. And I'm so excited to see him this season, and I hope that he can stay healthy. And the next player that I wanted to talk about is not getting as positive feedback as Balde is, and that player is Ferran Torres, because I think a lot of Barca fans were disappointed with his performance. He had a one-on-one. I think he was offsides anyways, but he did miss that, and he just wasn't able to make the impact that you would want him to make. And I think some Barca fans, they're really regretting that $55 million that Barca spent to sign him from Man City. And I still think there is a great player in there if Barcelona can get the best out of him. And I hope Hansi Flick can this season. And a lot of Barca fans, they ask, why is Ferran Torres not someone that's sold? Every summer, it seems like maybe he could be on the way out, but he always finds a way to stay back in the squad. In my opinion, I still think Ferran Torres can provide something for Barcelona. Maybe that doesn't really make much sense to a lot of people. And I understand that because I think a lot of times you always ask, what's his best position? Sometimes he's on the right. He's able to put a good cross in here and there, but he's not really able to go 1v1 against his player. And then on the left, he's also just seems like he cuts inside. Isn't really able to be a direct player on that side either, of course. And I think sometimes maybe his best position is off the striker as an attacking midfielder. But then, if that's your best position, you just signed Dani Olmo for $60 million. And Hansi Flick looks like he could also play Pedri there. Fermin Lopez is probably ahead of Ferran Torres in the pecking order. So, where does Ferran Torres fit in all of this? And I understand that question for sure. I do think there are times, though, where Barcelona, they look like they have a lot of players that just want a hold of the ball, and they don't really like to make runs off of it. Ferran Torres can be that type of player, I think. So he is a valuable profile to have if you can get the best out of him, and if he's able to get back to being a clinical finisher, because what we saw with the Spanish national team, I think he has a great goal-scoring record with the Spanish national team, and also with City as well. When he did play, he was able to score at a pretty consistent rate, and even if he didn't get that many chances, he was still finding his way in the box, and he was getting 1v1s. That's what I like about Ferran Torres, is that even if he's not the most clinical, he definitely has not been the most clinical in his few years at Barcelona, he's still finding himself in valuable positions. And I think the finishing, you hope at one point it would come, but it's been a couple years, and it hasn't exactly set in yet. But I still think Ferran Torres can provide something for Barcelona. And I know a lot of Barca fans are probably going to disagree with me, and there have definitely been times when I've been on that side that it's just probably not going to work out for Ferran Torres, and maybe Barca should just look to sell him for hopefully around 20 to 30 million, even though they just bought him for 55 million a couple of seasons ago. I understand that, but when he was at City, I think a lot of coaches around the world, they saw something in him before he signed with City. He was at Valencia doing very well, signed with City. With the Spanish national team, he's been great. He's had a good goal-scoring record for them. So there's still a good player in there if Hansi Flick can make the most out of him and play towards his strengths. Can Hansi Flick do that? That's the big question. But I understand Barca fans maybe being disappointed with his performance. I just still think there's a good player in there. And especially with Dani Olmo and Fermin Lopez and Pedri, those players that want the ball in and around the box, it's nice to have a runner, even if he's not finishing off his chances like we saw yesterday after that great ball from Lamine Yamal. It's still great to have a runner, but sometimes you, of course, want him to have more of an impact in the games. And yeah, I understand he's just been very inconsistent with that shark mentality that he had. It seemed like he had a very good spell of games, maybe for a couple months there at Barcelona. Then he got injured. It kind of, didn't get back on track after that. But I still think there is a good player in there, and I don't think he's going to be sold this summer. So you just hope Hansi Flick can play towards his strengths as a runner in behind and get the best out of him this season. And that brings me on to Pau Victor, because I think a lot of Barca fans say that he should start next game, because even in those 15-20 minutes that he had at the end of the game on the left, I think he did very well. I think he's got a lot of pace, and I think he can be a runner off the ball. On the ball, he's great. He's very creative in his own right, and his passing, I think, is great. Vision, very good as well. Put Lewandowski in for a one-on-one. That was a very good pass. Very intelligent. I think a lot of other players maybe would have continued to play it forward, but right when he saw Lewandowski open, just a nice pass right in front of the defender. Worked very well. And I know a lot of Barca fans say he should be starting over Ferran Torres. I completely understand that. And I think next game, this game against Athletic Bilbao during the midweek, I think Pau Victor definitely deserves to start. I could understand him starting on the left, especially I don't think Dani Olmo and Fermin Lopez, they are not going to be available for this game, I don't think, because for Dani Olmo, he hasn't practiced enough. I don't think he's been in enough training sessions to be starting or playing in this game, and I still don't think he's registered yet. And for Fermin Lopez, I just saw a report that he was going to be back in the squad on Thursday. I think the game is on Wednesday. So Fermin Lopez is still not back yet, so I could understand Pau Victor starting in this game against Bilbao, and I think he was one of the best players during the preseason, and so it's completely deserved. And I'm very excited to see how well Pau Victor does during this season, because I think he could be an important player for Hansi Flick. And to be honest, yeah, what we saw from Ferran Torres, it wasn't great. I was surprised, honestly, to see him get the start in this first game. So I could understand Pau Victor starting in front of him in that left wing position if Rafinha plays as an attacking midfielder and then Lamine Yamal is on the right. I can understand that. And Pau Victor, I think he does very well. I think off the striker he can be good, but also as a number 9, I'd really like to see how well he does in that position. Even though Lewandowski, he scored a brace in the last game, so hats off to him for that. But yeah, Pau Victor, very interesting profile to have in the squad, and I do think he will be getting minutes under Hansi Flick this season, so I would not be surprised if he does start over Ferran Torres after both of their performances in the game against Valencia. So I'm excited to see how well Pau Victor does. I think he can be an important player for Hansi Flick this season. And then I wanted to move on to Ilkay Gundogan, because it was very surprising to see him left out of the squad, and I think some Barca fans maybe panicked a little bit because they saw rumors that Barca were open to letting Gundogan leave because of the fact that he has a high salary, which is true. I think he's the second highest earner on the squad. He's earned maybe $20 million a year. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I saw somewhere when I was looking it up. Gundogan, he's a great player. I think he was the second best player for Barcelona last season under Lamine Yamal. I think Gundogan was so consistent. He was putting out good performances every single week, and also he was available, which is a very valuable thing to have as a player, because Barca, they have so many injury-prone players that, they're not able to give you even 50, 60% of the games in the season. So Gundogan being available for almost the entire year, that's very valuable to have. And I don't think, especially with how long the season is, I mean, and the injury-prone players that Barcelona have in the midfield, I think it's very important to have a player like Gundogan. So I really hope he stays. I think it would be a complete mistake if Laporta decides to sell him. And it doesn't make any sense because Laporta was the one himself that gave Gundogan that high salary. So it really would not make much sense for Gundogan to leave this summer. I hope that does not happen. And he basically confirmed himself because he said, great result from the team, very happy. Visca Barca, I think is what he said as well in his tweet. So basically denied any reports that he was wanting to leave and he was on the way out. It seemed like he maybe just had a concussion. I saw that on Twitter, so not exactly sure how long he's going to be out for. I haven't seen him in training. I was just really surprised that he wasn't in the squad, but he was taken off in that game against Monaco. It does seem like he's going to stay at Barcelona. I think that's the right decision. Yes, his salary is high, but you can't blame that one on Bartomeu because that was Laporta himself. He knew he was going to be, above 30 years old. He was going to be, towards the end of his career, and you're still paying him around $20 million a year. Maybe looking at it like that, it's not the best piece of business, but it was Gundogan on a free transfer. You were going to have to pay him a good amount of money. And like I said, it was Laporta himself that handed him that contract. Same with Lewandowski. You gave him a big contract, and he knew it was towards the last few years of their career. So you shouldn't, you can't expect more from Gundogan after the season that he had because I think he was great. He was one of the most important players in the squad last season. Definitely one of the most consistent. So you couldn't have done more. He couldn't have done more last season. And you knew he was going to be this age when this season started. So it doesn't really make much sense for Laporta to basically say his salary is too high. You gave it to him yourself. So Gundogan, I think he is going to stay at Barcelona, and hopefully he would be available in the next couple games, but I'm not exactly sure when he would be back. And then the next two players that I wanted to talk about were Marc Bernat and Marc Casado, because I think both of these players were great in this game against Valencia. I think in that first half, Casado just didn't have the impact that he wanted to on that left-hand side, but I think when he was moved to the right, I really liked his role a lot more. And like I said in my video, I think especially with Gavi out injured, I think Casado can be huge for Hansi Flick because he wants to bring intensity for 90 minutes. And Marc Casado, we've seen in preseason, he does not stop running. He works so hard off the ball. And on the ball, I think he can be smart with his passes. I think he's great. I think he's a great player. And Marc Bernat as well. That defensive midfield role that he has, I'm just very interested to see if Frankie de Jong and Gundogan and Pedri come back. I mean, will Hansi Flick go to the team with maybe a little bit more experience, or will he stick with Marc Bernat as a defensive midfielder? Because I think we saw in the season last year with Xavi that even when you had a midfield of Frankie de Jong, Gundogan, and Pedri, there were times when you were missing a defensive midfielder, a true defensive midfielder that was able to give work off the ball, that was able to make the simple passes, that didn't want to push too far forward, and defensively, he was able to track his runs. And I think Marc Bernat, he does provide all of that. So it'd be interesting to see when everyone is healthy, if Hansi Flick just goes to a midfield that maybe is a little bit more attacking, that has a little bit more experience. But Marc Bernat, I think he's proven in this game, and especially in preseason as well, that he fits in this squad, that he's able to play at this level. Of course, if it's a big Champions League game, maybe you would want more experience, and we'll have to see further down the season if that's the case. But Marc Bernat, I think his profile is so valuable, and a lot of Barca fans say this is what you've been missing, since Busquets left. You don't want to go that far, but I think as a defensive midfielder, you knew you needed someone like that, and if there wasn't a true profile that you wanted on the market that you were able to afford, I understand the Zubamendi and Angelo Stiller talks, but those didn't pan out. And Zubamendi, he wanted to stay at Sociedad, so maybe you have to look within the academy, trust La Masia, which I think is what Hansi Flick plans to do this season, and give Marc Bernat more opportunities. And I'm really excited to see both of them. And I think those two are going to be starting in the midfield against Athletic Bilbao during the midweek. And as I said, this game against Valencia was great. For me, I was very impressed with not only Hansi Flick's in-game management, but with the way that he set the team up and with how the players performed, because just coming back from preseason, they weren't in that rhythm, but they still found a way to get 3 points away from home against a difficult opponent. So very happy with all of that. And of course, this game against Athletic Bilbao, it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. I think it is at home for Barcelona, which is good. And I think Pedri, maybe he would be available to start. Would honestly like to see him come off the bench again because you just don't want to rush him back. Give him as much time to get adapted to the rhythm of the game. And I've just been really impressed with the way that they've started this season. I think some Barca fans, during that first half against Valencia, they were a bit worried that it was going to be the same thing that we saw last season, where Barca, they just didn't look good enough going forward. They did have good spells of possession, but they were pretty wasteful in front of goal, or they just weren't able to make that final pass that broke through the defense, and then they were countered very easily. And I saw that in the first half, but for them to bounce back, to get a rough goal, to be honest, it was just somewhat out of nowhere, Alejandra Bal, great cross to Yamal. Yamal put it back into the box, and Lewandowski with a great finish. That was very important, and it was nice to see Barcelona be able to bounce back from that 1-goal deficit. Definitely could have been 2-0 down if not for Kubarsi making a goal line save that just really honestly saved the result for Barcelona, because I think at 2-0 down away from home would have been very difficult because you would have had to push further up. That would have left you open for a 3-0 loss. So, yeah, Barca, I just was very impressed with the way that they played, and I'm excited because I know a lot of Barca fans, maybe they were a bit worried how Barcelona started that game, but to see the fight, to bounce back, and then be able to hold that 2-1 result, even though maybe they could have finished off the game at 3-1, I think that will come during the season. So I'm just very excited with the way that Hansi Flick set the team up. I think it was proactive. I think it was aggressive going forward, and it stuck to his identity, the way that he wanted to play, even with a lot of players missing. So very impressed with all of that. But as always, I just wanted to talk more about that, and thank you very much for watching my video. I do appreciate it, and Visca Barca as always. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. See you all later. Peace.